What's good, football fans? Back at you once again with another podcast. And you heard that right, podcast, as we reboot this thing one more again. And finally, the team was able to hit their bye week last week, much needed rest. And the remaining games against the Saints, the Eagles, the Falcons, and the Cowboys are ultra important. But right now, if the season ended, Washington would have the 7th seed in the playoffs, but the Rams are right there nipping at their heels, and the Rams have to play the Niners, the Jets, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. So they still got a whole lot of their, division rivals left out there too. So neither team really have an easy route in. And technically, Washington still has an outside shot at the division if by some chance Philly were to just completely fall out. The main reason why it's great to see the bye week for this team is because of the injury situation. A lot of players that were dinged up with at least, small injuries, but, you really got to look at Eckler over there and Wiley, both out with concussions. If the team is to make any kind of push, they're definitely going to need Wiley back. And Eckler does special things for the team that, there really isn't anybody else on the roster that can do those things. I mean, when you're talking about Austin Eckler, he's a guy that in 380 snaps, has rushed the ball 74 times for 355 yards, which is just a shade under 5 yards a carry, got 4 touchdowns, and caught the ball 33 times for 346 yards. He means a lot to that team. Combined 107 touches, you can't just replace that. But that's exactly what the team is going to be forced to do with him out of the lineup. I saw a bunch of reports coming out about them working out some running backs, but they didn't sign any of them, which tells me that they might feel comfortable with what they have for now. I personally don't think that they have, a pass catching back on the roster that can really do what Eckler does or did for them earlier in the year, but I'm not sure if there's that many of those guys out there to be got right now. Personally, I think Washington got hosed with getting that bye week so late. I mean, it kind of just screws everything up, the timeline on a lot of things. Thankfully, they were already starting to get a bit healthier, coming into last week's game. And now, of course, the extra days off have definitely helped the team get back on track, or at least, aided them in getting back on track in a lot of situations. While I don't have the final injury report, I do have Thursdays. And one big kick in the side this week was hearing about Noah Brown probably out for the rest of the year. It sounds like he had some sort of kidney injury in the last game. But other than him, both Farrell and Martin were both limited. They practiced Thursday. And then nobody else really, rang the bell on that as far as Washington's players go. But on the other side of the ball, the Saints had Derek Carr, DeMarco Jackson, Alvin Kamara, and one of their receivers, Means, all missed practice Thursday. Now, Carr has already been crossed off the active list. I don't believe they've deemed anything about Kamara yet. Taking a look at a couple of the keys to the game that I have, one of the big keys to this game is definitely going to be to get into that young Saints quarterback who doesn't have much pro experience, to get in his face. Jake Hayner, I think is his name. They need to make that guy feel as uncomfortable as possible. Normally stopping Alvin Kamara would have been number 1 and number 2 when you're playing the Saints. But if he isn't playing, it's not quite the same thing with Jamal Williams at running back. And that's not me just, trying to say that Williams is some slouch. He just, he doesn't do the same things that Kamara can. Honestly, I think the biggest thing going into this week is to avoid the trap game. This is a game that Washington should win. You got Marshon Lattimore coming back. He's obviously going to be hot to get a little bit of revenge. They're coming off the bye. It's time to prove some things. One other thing to note, Washington did sign another kicker. I believe his name was Greg Joseph. I think that's more along the lines of an insurance policy in case something were to happen and Zane Gonzalez couldn't go. Even though Gonzalez was a full go yesterday in practice, they don't want a replay of a couple weeks ago when a hurt kicker kind of played a role in a loss. But no matter what, every game is a must-win from this point on if they want to make the playoffs. They have to look at every single game the same. They're all must-wins from this point out. The team let go of Emmanuel Forbes already, so that project is over. He only had 112 snaps on the year, and he'd been a healthy scratch for a whole lot of games. I think that's partly to do with the play of Noah Igbenogany, and also partly to do with the rookie Mike Sainristil. Igbenogany stepping up really, gave them the option to be able to move forward without Forbes. I think you'll see St. Juste take a seat, kind of further down the line as well. Even though as I see him in situations where he's not going up against the other team's number one, I see him doing a little bit better each week. Although I did see him get burnt as well a couple weeks back. But Dan Quinn had this to say talking about Lattimore. He said, just the markers of him being able to hit all the speeds, all the change of directions, and really all the things that will come in practice for his position. So we've got to put him through a lot of tests, all the strength, all the speed to go. And so he's hit all the markers up till now. And so that process that we have is a strict one for that reason, to keep the players safe and healthy. And so he's done a really good job of making sure he could hit them. And we'll take that into practice now this week, and hopefully that'll lead into a full week of practice and into the game. But until we get all the way to that spot, I'll stay guarded and then give you guys updates as we get into Friday. Now, while I think that he'll make his debut this week, that tells me that they definitely have, a guarded approach. And I have heard tons of people talk about this situation, and frustration kind of spills over about how they traded, in season at the trade deadline for a guy, and a lot of people expected him to be able to produce immediately. Thing is, I kind of think that they knew before they traded for him that it was going to be a couple weeks. If under the old regime, maybe they would have rushed him back immediately, or, over there in New Orleans, maybe they were trying to rush him back from that injury. I'm not certain. Maybe that's the reason why his hamstring maybe has come back a couple times now and bit him. I think they're trying to take it easy with him, bring him back when he's 100%, and then let's see what he's got full speed, full go. This is the kind of player, when 100% healthy, can really make a difference. And with New Orleans already paying the lion's share of his contract for this year, and him not really having any guaranteed money at all sitting there, it's a good time for Washington to be able to gauge what they have. I'm expecting this guy to plug right in and play. And I think once he hits the lineup, I think everybody instantly gets better. And that should have the most impact on Igbenogany and St. Juste, in my opinion, because Sainristil is going to be able to keep bringing what he's brought every week consistently, in my opinion. There's a lot of people that really have expected, that Sainristil will slip into the slot once Lattimore comes back. I'm not 100% sold on that yet. The way that kid's been playing, I've definitely taken a deeper look at his film the last week or so, and he's having himself a year, y'all. So I'm not 100% sold yet that he's just going to move into the slot and, that just be the end of that, so to speak. I think that he's going to be given a chance to move around. He's definitely been the best rookie not named Jayden. And that's not to say that they're not amongst, a decent rookie crop either, because they are. But, coming out of that Tennessee game, a few things that really stood out for me as far as looking at what's happened so far this year. The team is 5-0 when Terry McLaurin has 8 or more targets. And while you can't force the ball to a guy by any means at any time, seeing that kind of stat really goes to show me that what I've been saying and thinking for a while, that Terry McLaurin is a number one receiver, is the truth. When the guy gets his targets, they win. Now, does that mean that they don't need another weapon, another big, tall guy like McMillan from over there from Arizona, who is a complete freak? Does that mean they don't need a guy like that? Hell no, that doesn't mean that. They definitely always are going to need more targets. It just means that, yes, Terry is a true number one target in this game. Now, if you still want to argue this point out there, you guys, argue how long he could sustain being a number one. A couple of things, team related. Washington named Mark Klaus team president last week. This is a guy coming from, the Campbell's Company. They own the Soups and Goldfish and Pepperidge Farm and, a few other things. So he's used to dealing with successful brands. I'm interested to see how that crosses over to a football brand, but we all know that they're selling a product, so it shouldn't be any different than what he's already been doing. I've heard nothing but good things about this guy. I think most people know this, but I think everybody needs to stop and understand that this guy, he controls the other side of the building, okay? He does not control football decisions. Just like Jason Wright had no say, this guy has no say over the moves the football team makes. There's always a pocket of people that immediately think that a team is dumb for hiring, a guy that was working for, as I was just saying, Campbell's Soup. And there'll be jokes about it instantly. Oh, we hired a guy that was working for Campbell's Soup to run the team. This is the kind of joke. I've heard every single comeback from this fan base, which, by the way, guys, I don't know why there are still people down there trolling the rest of the fan base, trying to be negative about this team. But give it up, man. It's old and played out. There's no reason for it. It's as tired as Daniel Snyder was as the owner here. It needs to go. Are they Super Bowl contenders this year? I mean, we don't know the way this chapter is going to get written completely, but I'd say that they are a couple years off from being solid every year contenders. And I think that's what they're trying to build. And what they need is, a fan base that gets behind them when they need them. I never get into a situation where I try to tell people how to fan and how to be a fan. But for Christ's sakes, man, get over yourselves. Like, the negativity that I'm continuing to hear is just ridiculous. There comes a time when you just have to stop. And that rolls me into my next topic. Is there a new road to a stadium being in DC? That's a really good question. For the longest time, the team was stuck kind of in neutral on this topic, obviously, because everybody was arguing about the team name and the owner. They didn't like him, and there was just 1,000 different reasons why they couldn't move there. The Parks and Recreation situation, the district not having control, the city wanting to use the land for something else. But a lot of it has kind of funneled into where we are right now, where the name has changed, where the name's not going to change back to Redskins again, even though I see no things wrong with the team being named the Redskins. I do not see the name coming back. But even though that situation is different, they may change the name again to something different. They definitely don't have that roadblock any longer. Daniel Snyder is gone. So odds and ends politics is really all that's left holding a move like that up. And last week, some news broke out about how, one senator was telling another senator, agree with Maryland and we can move forward on this. And Maryland's talking about how they want control of an air squadron, and DC doesn't want to give control of that up. It's just a bunch of politics is normal. It's like sludge in the gears. And who knows if this thing is going to happen or not. But if it's going to happen, it probably is going to have to happen soon. I know there's a pocket of fans that want to see this team elsewhere for whatever reason they may have. Maybe it's logistics reason. Who knows? But I'm letting you know. The place to put them is the RFK site. That is where history has been made with this franchise, and it's where the franchise should be. There's always going to be, a spot for Virginia. There's always going to be a spot maybe for Maryland as well. The team owns the land that FedEx is built on. Who knows what's going to happen to that property? But where the team currently is with their practice facility, I don't see that being a forever home either. They've already cleared the way for that to be sold in the future or to be used for something separate. And we're going to find out real soon the way this political back and forth is going to go. Realistically, there's not any reasons why they shouldn't be able to move back to that RFK site. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, and obviously there's some red tape to get through, but there's really no reason to say that they couldn't go back. I think a lot of people are so hung up on this name thing that they want to stay negative about this whole topic. And look, I'm going to tell you guys, you got to come to the table eventually and realize that you're only getting older and that you're going to be missing out on the team getting better over the next season and a half. So you should just come on back to the table and realize the Redskins not coming back does not mean that they can't transition to something else using the older logo still in some form. Will we see a rebrand? I don't know. That's a topic that we can go over as time goes by. I personally have always liked the idea of the Washington Warriors. I know there's 5 arguments about why that won't work. This person said that, this person said that. Truth is, in the long run, it could work. It's just about money. I know a lot of people ran with the idea that the logo might be coming back when, in all honesty, it was more so about they want to show the respect to the old logo in merchandise that was being put out. Like for instance, like a Darryl Green shirt that popped out where they actually airbrushed the logo off of his helmet. Stuff like that shouldn't be going on. Like, they shouldn't try to hide that kind of past. Like, airbrushing that kind of past out is ridiculous. And there were a couple of other instances on NFL Network where they had done it in promo stuff, and the team came out and said they would not do that any longer. Now, what I think you could possibly see is perhaps any of those shirts that show the old logo, there could be a portion of that money going to Native American projects, which that's one thing that they said a couple weeks back as well, was that they were going to try to start, any kind of proceeds were going to go to certain projects or certain groups. I think at the most, that's probably what you could see, an outreach situation. It doesn't make any sense. The fact that we're in 2025 and the political climate is what it is, and the name's already been changed, tells me that it's not going to get changed back again. It doesn't matter if our owner is, a conservative or, a liberal. It doesn't matter. It's not going to get changed back, because the second that they go and change it back, they lose all of their pull and all the gears, all the gears that are moving right now for the team, as far as moving them back to DC and this working and that working, all those gears, all the oil that's caught in those those gears and keeping them going, that shit'll sludge up quick. There's absolutely no reason for them to do that. It makes no sense. And that's coming from a 40+ year fan who was appalled when I started hearing people talk about how the name was somehow offensive to somebody. A guy that now sits back and watches when Kansas City's prime time as they beat on a drum and freaking tomahawk chop, even though my Braves are not allowed to tomahawk chop anymore. So trust me, I see the double standards going on here. I see that it's not, particularly right. It does not matter. Daniel Snyder changed the name. And let's get it right, y'all. He didn't change the name because of pressure coming politically. He changed the name because of pressure coming from his partners. It was about money. It was about advertisement. It was about keeping his house afloat. See, he had stuff, but he was just completely cash poor. All you guys that that went that negative extra route, you did it. You left him cash poor. That and him spending like an idiot left him without money. He had no choice. He had to crumble. He had to cave. Now, I have heard a lot of people say that maybe Commanders was his FU to the fan base that wouldn't stand by him. Being a person that was kind of loosely involved in that name situation as far as the social media side goes, I can tell you that at about 2016 or 2015, they started pulling back on that fight. Like, when they started the Redskin Facts thing in 2014, which my website openly helped promote and, supported, they started pulling back in 2015 and 2016 because it seemed like the fans were not supporting the idea of fighting more. And not even 6 months before they changed the name, this wasn't even a topic anymore. You didn't see people in front of the games anymore protesting. As a matter of fact, you only saw people in front of games protesting in certain areas at that, before then. And I think a lot of people might point to Minnesota and say, oh, well, people were protesting at the Minnesota games. Okay, yeah, I'll give you Minnesota. That they definitely were. There were some people protesting there. But that's it. And I know there's a side that says, well, if anybody protests, then it, it wasn't right. I'm not here to argue that point anymore. The whole point I was trying to make was the team stopped trying to fight that in like 2016. The name stayed for another 3 seasons, y'all. 2019 was the last time that name took the field. It's been 5 years since then, and I still hear people say that they're not going to cheer for the team until the name comes back. It's become a dividing line, which I think is also ridiculous. I see groups on Facebook that if you say the name Commanders, they'll boot you. I see groups on Facebook that if you say the name Redskins, they'll boot you. Man, it's such a confusing time to be a fan of the burgundy and gold. And as a content creator, I find myself deep in the middle of it. It's time for everybody to settle down. This franchise is on the rise. It's on the way up. Now is not the time to squabble with each other and complain about things. Now is the time to sit back and be a fan and watch the games. Are they always going to win? Nah, man, they ain't going to always win. That's ridiculous thinking. Those instant reactions where you throw televisions and burn jerseys, that's shit Cowboy fans do. Washington fans don't do that shit, not real ones. Y'all just need to relax. The good stuff is coming. And the good part about it all, y'all, in the next 4 weeks, we're going to see what this team's made of in year one of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. It's just year one, y'all. The quarterback of the future is literally on our roster. And there are people that are angry about this football team. What in the world's wrong with y'all? Have we forgotten how many games they won last year? Have we forgotten the path that Ron Rivera had this franchise on? Have we forgotten where we were just a couple of years ago as fans with Daniel Snyder owning this team? Have we forgotten how it was to turn the television on then and hear about our owner, or to hear about what was going on Capitol Hill with Daniel Snyder, oh, this and that and the third? Just flash back 5 more years and see what they were talking about, how we were racist for fucking supporting a team. You support a team, you must be a racist. And don't tell me I'm wrong about that either. That shit was going on. It's one of the reasons why I stopped being part of Twitter. I always thought that was one of the most ridiculous parts about this whole conversation, was calling a fan racist for cheering for a team. That's the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. But that's what happens when you start mixing your politics with your sports, which is something that I've always tried to avoid. But obviously this situation was quite unavoidable. And I'm just ready for it to end now. The name has changed. It'll probably change again. I don't know how long it might be. But that's not going to keep me from enjoying probably the best quarterback we've had since, I don't know, fucking Sonny Jurgensen? Yo, give it a chance. Time to be happy about this franchise. Time to give it all a chance. And for those already at the table enjoying, hey, I tip my cap to thee. Let's go get these last 4 games and make it to the playoffs, y'all. Moving forward on the channel, I'm going to try to do things a little bit differently. I've brought back memberships, and I'm going to use that as a way, because I was having issues keeping my Patreon going. And I had a few people over there that were subscribed, and I wasn't getting enough content. I think that's what I'm probably going to start doing with the full episodes of Watching the Film with Phil, is putting them, through the membership situation, and maybe, cutting pieces here and there and putting them up on the channel. But the full episodes, you have to be a member to see them when they come out. Maybe I'll live stream them a couple days later. Who knows? I might get to that as we get there. Right now, obviously, with memberships being something new, I have no members over there, so there's no reason for me to make a 30-minute long video that, there's no members to watch it. So as soon as that progresses a little bit more, I definitely will be getting back to the Watching Film with Phil episodes. Until then, you guys can expect the podcast and cuts out of the podcast, and maybe a video here and there from the highlights from the podcast. And then the podcasts will be probably either live streamed or just premiered. But I was very grounded when I was going into this whole situation of rebooting this channel, so to speak, after the last couple of seasons of uncertainty over here on YouTube. And I always knew it would take a year or two to kind of get back to where I wanted to be. So I've always looked at this year as kind of a wash. So I'm just trying to feel things out. So this is not me saying that the All-22 film is going to disappear, because there's still going to be projects that are going to be coming out. It's just for right now, in the meantime, it's not going to be the only focus. I mean, for example, right now, I've already got a Mike Samerstill video that's at least 40% already done. It's just I don't want to dump tons of time and effort into something that, nobody's interested in watching. What's the purpose of that? At any rate, let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up on your way out. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you sat here through all of this rambling and content, I don't know why you're not already subscribed. Y'all take it easy. Peace.